Hi, I am Rashani DeBell, and you are learning algebra. Welcome back. In part 2 of our lesson on factoring quadratic trinomials, I am going to show you 3 different ways that you can use to factor a quadratic trinomial. I'm also going to show you how you can check your work. So let's get started. I'm going to show you 3 different methods to factor a quadratic trinomial: the box method, the X method, and factor by grouping. Don't panic! You won't have to memorize each method. After working through each of the methods, choose one that you like the most and use that method to factor quadratic trinomials. So let's get started. Factoring quadratic trinomials using the box method. In the box method, we are essentially looking at the Punnett square method that we were using in multiplying two linear binomials. The difference over here is that instead of writing our binomial terms on the top and to the left, we're actually going to fill in this box with this expression over here and then use the numbers that are inside the box to factor each column and each row to get the numbers that we used to put on the top. To start off with, this number over here, this term 8x squared, that will always go on the top left box. My leading coefficient will always go on the top left box. My constant -3 will always go in the bottom right box. Those will never change. Top left is your leading coefficient, bottom right is always your constant. These two boxes will depend on what terms we have over here that we break the positive 2x to. To figure out what goes in this box, we need to know two numbers, a times c, that multiplies to -24. So the product of a times -3, I want to get two numbers that multiply to -24. I also want those two numbers to add up to +2, which is my b term. Since this product is -24, I know that I need to have one of my factors be a negative factor, because a negative times a positive is what gives me the negative. And since my sum is a +2, I know that the larger of these two factors has to be positive because we take the sign of the greater number when we add, and that number has to be positive. So my two factors that multiply to -24 are going to be +6 and -4, because +6 times -4 is -24, and +6 plus a -4 is +2. So these two numbers, +6 and -4, are going to go in here, and we're going to make sure that we put the x term in there, so it's going to be a +6x and -4x. So just taking this box and rewriting over here into our set of 4 terms, we would have 8x squared. This +2x breaks it down into +6x, -4x, and then we have the -3. Now, we're going to factor the columns first, paying attention to the sign that is outside each of the terms. So these 3 boxes, that's what we're looking at their signs for, because this determines whether the factored form is going to be positive or negative. Starting over here, this is a positive 8x, which means that it's going to be a positive, and then the greatest common factor between 8x squared and 4x is going to be 4x. Looking at this column, this is a +6, so I know that it's going to be a positive. Greatest common factor of 6x and -3, these two are both divisible by 3, so it's just going to be 3. And again, it's positive because the term out here is a +6. Now we're going to look at it each row and factor out each row. I have 8x squared and +6x. This 8x is positive, so it's going to be a positive. 8 and 6 are both divisible by 2, and I have an x in common over here. This is a -4, which means my term out here has to be a negative. 4 and 3, the only number that 4 and 3 is divisible by is 1. So I'm going to factor out a 1. And there are my two binomial expressions. We never write the positive in the leading term, so factored form of 8x squared plus 2x minus 3 is positive 4x plus 3 times 2x minus 1. Factoring quadratic trinomials using the x method. To start this method, we are going to first find the products of 8 and negative 3 and write it in this top box over here. So a times c is going to be 8 times negative 3, which is negative 24. The sum b is going to go at the bottom of our x over here, which is a positive 2. Now we're going to look for two numbers that multiply to negative 24 and add to positive 2. Since our product is a negative, we know that one of our factors has to be a negative number. And since our sum is positive, we know that one of these factors, the larger of the factors, has to be a positive. So our two factors are positive 6 and negative 4. 6 times negative 4 is negative 24. 6 plus negative 4 gives me positive 2. Using the two values that I got, I can plug it into my binomial expression. I know one of them is going to be a positive 6 and that the other one is going to be a negative 4. I am then going to write this term over here as my leading coefficient for both of my binomial terms. So it's just going to be 8x and 8x over here. Our final step is to simplify both of these binomial expressions to its lowest term, which means I want to divide out the common factor in each of these binomial expressions. In my first binomial expression, 8x and positive 6, 8 and 6 are both divisible by 2. So I'm going to divide both of these by 2, which gives me 8 divided by 2 is 4, and there's an x over there. 6 divided by 2 is positive 3. In this binomial expression, I have 8x and negative 4. Both 8 and 4 are divisible by 4. And when I divide that by 4, I am left with 8 divided by 4 is 2. And there's an x over there. And negative 4 divided by 4 is negative 1. I now have two binomial expressions in its simplest form. I can't divide it out by anything other than 1. And so this is my final answer of the factored form of 8x squared plus 2x minus 3. Factoring quadratic trinomials using grouping. To use the grouping method, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this positive 2x and break it into two terms so that I get a total of 4 terms that I can work with in order to factor. To break this positive 2x into the two terms, what I need to start by doing is figure out what two numbers multiply out to a c. So I need two numbers that give me the product of 8 times negative 3, which is negative 24. And these same two numbers have to add up to positive 2. Because my product is a negative 24, I know that one of my numbers has to be a positive and one of my numbers has to be a negative. And because my sum is a positive 2, I know that the bigger of those two numbers has to be a positive and the other one has to be a negative. So the two numbers that I have are positive 6 and negative 4. Positive 6 times negative 4 is equal to negative 24, and positive 6 plus a negative 4 gives me positive 2. So I can break this trinomial into 8 x squared plus 6x, so essentially taking that positive 2x and breaking it into positive 6x and a negative 4x minus 3. If I add 6x and negative 4x, I get back to this positive 2x over here. Now to factor by grouping, I am going to group each of these terms into sets of 2. So I'm going to have a group over here, and I'm going to have a group over here. And I'm going to work with each group individually. First, in this group, I'm going to look to see if there are any common factors between them, so the greatest common factors, and I'm going to pull that out of that parentheses. So between 8x squared and positive 6x, I can divide both 8 and 6 by 2, so I can factor out a 2. And I also have an x in common, so I can factor out an x. And what I'm left with is 4x divide 6 by 2. 6 divided by 2 is positive 3. Now let's check. 2x times a positive 3 is 6x, so yep, that works. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I want to factor this expression so that it ends up looking like this over here inside the parentheses, 4x plus 3. The only term that I can divide 4x and 3 by is 1, so I can factor out a 1, and in order to make it look like this, 4x plus 3, I am going to factor out a negative 1. So negative 1 times 4x is a negative 4x, and negative 1 times a positive 3 is a negative 3. The reason why I want these two binomials to look the same is because now I can factor out this expression, 4x plus 3, because I have those in common, and what's left, this 2x and this negative 1, go inside a second binomial expression. And there's our final answer. The factored form of 8x squared plus 2x minus 3 is 4x plus 3 times 2x minus 1. Finally, we are going to check if 8x squared plus 2x minus 3 actually does factor out to 2x minus 1 times 4x plus 3. Factoring is the inverse operation of multiplying two linear binomials. So I can check my work, or check if my factored form is correct, by multiplying these two linear expressions and seeing if I end up with 8x squared plus 2x minus 3. I'm going to use the FOIL method to multiply my two linear binomials. So first I'm going to do 2x times 4x. 2 times 4 is 8. X times x is x squared. I'm then going to multiply the 2x with the positive 3. 2 times positive 3 is positive 6. X times a 1 is just going to be positive 6x. I'm also going to multiply the negative 1 times the positive 4x. Negative 1 times positive 4x is negative 4x. And finally, going to multiply the negative 1 times a positive 3. Negative 1 times positive 3 is negative 3. I'm going to simplify these two terms in the middle because they're like terms. I can combine them to get positive 2x, and I'm going to bring the rest of these terms down. So I have 8x squared plus 2x minus 3, which is the same as this expression over here, 8x squared plus 2x minus 3. And there you have it. We just checked our work. To conclude our lesson on factoring quadratic trinomials, I want you to factor out the following expression, x squared plus 8x plus 15, using one of the methods described in this lesson. Remember to check your work by multiplying out the resulting linear binomials. Be prepared to discuss this problem in class. Thanks for watching.